Welcome to part 2 of the Suzie Benjamin interview. Suzie, we left off in the first segment with you sharing the great news about winning the scholarship, the Jamaica Scholarship in 1973. How were you notified again, and what did it mean for you?
Yeah, as I said, I was already away. I was with my mom in a hotel room shopping for university, the cold Canadian winters and stuff, and my sister called and said, you know, "Oh, you really didn't work very hard for A-levels. Your A-level results are out, and boy." And so I immediately thought, oh my God, you know.
Is this Dana or Marlene?
My little sister.
Dana.
So anyway, so that's how I learned, and there was quite a bit of fuss because the Jamaica Scholar, the male Jamaica Scholar that year also he and I had been in the same prep school class in St. Andrew Junior. So there was this celebration about this being a vintage year, and you know, there was a lot of fuss spread in the newspaper on the front page of the Gleaner, and yeah, I was sorry I wasn't there because of course I didn't get to soak up all of this celebration, I guess. You know, my parents were obviously very proud of me, and I guess yeah, it was a great accomplishment. I was very proud of it. I worked very hard. And
How did you celebrate?
I don't recall celebrating really. I was, as I say, mostly surprised because I was not expecting it at all. I don't recall. I just remember feeling very relieved and very proud of myself because it had been a lot of very hard work. Yeah. So I went off to school where I became one of many very, very, very bright people. So that was a bit of an adjustment. You know, I was no longer, everybody there was very bright. Everybody there was very good at maths. Everybody was, you know, they were all excellent students, so I was no longer near the top of anything. So that was a big adjustment. So I had to work really hard again.
So was this your first time living outside of Jamaica, would you say? And what was life like adjusting as a young lady in a new environment?
Yeah, I struggled a bit my first couple of years, mostly because I had gone from an all-girls school with a very small class. You know, A-levels in those days were 10, 12 kids to a class, and I ended up in a very large university with very large classes, 300 kids to a class, mostly young men, because it was what I was studying. I was studying maths, so there were very few women in my program. So I went from this very small, sheltered sort of classroom situation into this enormous lecture hall where you could barely see a professor. So it was an adjustment. I don't think I asked a question for a year and a half because you know you're afraid of appearing stupid or asking something silly, and there's boys there, and you know that was an adjustment in and of itself. But yeah, I made my way through it. The first couple of years academically, my A-levels had given me a head start. So the subjects that I had already covered in A-levels, I was comfortable in, but there was new stuff that I'd never seen before, computer science, which is what I eventually majored in. But you know, never seen anything to do with a computer before I got there. So there was an adjustment, big adjustment. The climate was different, people were different, and I had to work really hard because of what I was in. So.
And you lived on campus?
I lived on campus for my first 2 years, which was very good, I think, because you know, you immediately have people that you know. You know, you have a roommate, and if you're lucky, you get on well with them, and so you have some immediate company. But it was an adjustment. I used to cry. I was so cold. I used to cry.
Wow. But
then I didn't know how to dress for it. You know, it's not something anybody can prepare you for, I don't think.
So would you say you formed lifelong friendships on campus at University of Waterloo?
Yeah, I'm still in touch with my roommate. So, you know, 35 years later, I'm still in touch with her.
What part of the world is she from?
She's Canadian.
She's Canadian.
Yeah.
And did you find a lot of Canadians attending University of Waterloo at the time? Wonderful.
There's a lot, mostly Canadians. It's a small West Indian community, which I didn't really get involved with, which was something I do regret. Didn't really get involved with campus life as much as looking back, I feel I should have. I was just studying, which, you know, I suppose is a good thing in many ways, but I think there's another part of university that I missed out on.
Right. So after the end of a semester, what did you do? For activities? Did you get into
end of school?
End of the semester at university?
Well, I used to come home.
Each semester. You'd come home.
Yeah.
You'd come home. Oh, wonderful.
I worked here for a couple of the summers and worked in Canada for one of them. And then I stayed in Canada for a couple of years and worked. And then one very cold Monday morning when it was cold and dark and grey, I thought, I think I've had enough, and I came home.
While you were in university, did you have any little snacks from Jamaica that you want to ensure be packed for your term? Or when you returned, was there anything that you wanted to have in Jamaica first, whether it was perhaps a patty or some food item?
Way back then.
No?
I don't remember. I remember eating on campus a lot, with the cafeteria food, which was mostly not very good. Still managed to gain a lot of weight, I'm not sure how. But no, I didn't. You have to remember that was the 70s, where there was not a lot of luxury in Jamaica, not a lot of, there was shortages, everything was short. So coming home, I was the one bringing everything with me. I was bringing the flour and the sugar and the rice and everything because everything was hard to get here.
Thanks for sharing that, because it really does put things in perspective once you've mentioned, the 70s. Okay, so thank you, Suzie, for sharing that bit of personal journey in your university life. When did you graduate, and what did you do after graduation?
So I graduated in 1979, stayed in Canada until 1981. As I said, I worked there, had a very good job there that I liked a lot, but I just couldn't get used to the climate. So I came home and started working here and was, on the corporate climb until I had my first child, and my perspective on life changed. And it all of a sudden wasn't that important anymore. I was lucky to be in a financial position that I could back off of my career and focus more on being a mother. So I did that for a lot of years. I took children very quickly. And I was a full-time mom and a part-time consultant. I graduated with a degree in computer science, so I've always worked in the IT industry. So I was a consultant for a lot of years.
Well, so putting things in perspective, moving from perhaps a Commodore 64 to these computers which possibly held a server held this room, to the change with the brick cell phones and the different developmental phases and things, now having the surge of social media platforms and so on. What would you say the IT space is like now, then and now?
There's nothing to compare it to, nothing. I mean, when I was in university, this entire center of the math building was a computer room. It was enormous, with huge enormous computer. It just is nothing to, and they were probably less, each of those enormous computers was probably less powerful than your cell phone, the computer in your cell phone. Now it is staggering, the change in just my lifetime. It's an industry that if you don't keep up, you get left behind very quickly. So that's a challenge for me. During the years when I was consulting, it was a difficulty for me to always keep abreast of the current technology and the advances that were being made. But here I am, still doing it.
What would you say is the secret to work-life balance?
Work-life balance. I think you just have to have your priorities straight. As I say, I was very lucky in that financially I could back off of my career and focus on my kids, which I'm eternally grateful that I had that opportunity. I think it made them better people, and it certainly was good for us all. And I guess I'm lucky that I'm in a profession that when I was ready to go back into full-time work, I could. It wasn't like something that I could no longer get as involved as I needed to be. So when my youngest child went away to school, she was 16 or 16, I guess, I went back to full-time work. So went right back into it, and now I'm doing the career bit again. So I've been lucky. Had a very active career early, and then I took a break for children, and now I'm back in a very active period of my career again.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, I've been lucky that way.
What aspect of IT are you in? Development? Do you write codes?
No, I don't write code. I'm the manager of the IT department for a large group of companies. So, yeah, it's stressful, but challenging, always interesting, but stressful.
Okay. Well, stay with us for part 3.